quarter of a mile, at the roundabout, take the first exit onto Burnham Lane.
In a quarter of a mile, turn right onto Bath Road, A4. Turn right onto Bath Road, A4. Continue on Bath Road for 3/4 of a mile.
Talks between the UK and the EU are taking place this morning. Sinn Féin's Michelle O'Neill has accused Britain of using Northern Ireland as a pawn in its power play with Brussels.
I think what we've heard from the British government is more rhetoric. It's dialing up a lot of noise. They're clearly engaged in a game of chicken with the European Union. What does that serve the people here? It does not serve the people here. And it's all about the internal wranglings of the Tory party and not about smoothing the implementation of the protocol.
Treasury officials have reportedly been ordered by the Chancellor to examine plans for a windfall tax on oil and gas giants. That's despite ministers repeatedly ruling out the idea, claiming it could deter investment in the North Sea. The Prime Minister Boris Johnson will be speaking to Nick Ferrari at breakfast next on LBC. London's mayor has appointed a drugs czar to explore the potential benefits of legalising cannabis. Sadiq Khan has asked the former Justice Secretary Lord Falconer to lead a review of the law on the Class B drug. The mayor's visited a legalised cannabis factory in Los Angeles during a 4-day visit to the US. LBC's correspondent Rachel Venables has followed him on the trip.
This is a highly regulated, highly taxed industry generating millions for the city of LA. But Michelle Garakian, head of the Department of Cannabis Regulation, says equity is at the heart of deciding who works in it.
Firstly, it has created an opportunity for consumers of cannabis to shop safely and to shop wisely and to also ensure that the products that they're consuming are tested and healthy.
Of course, like all drugs, cannabis comes with health risks, but the people of California decided regulation was the least bad option. And after seeing it for himself, Sadiq Khan says he's open-minded.
A union
In 300 yards, at Huntercombe roundabout, take the first exit onto Huntercombe Spur heading to M4, London.
criticised ministers for attacking his members' working arrangements. its use of drones for deliveries. 50 new postal drone routes will be set up over the next 3 years, which it says will improve services to remote communities. In the city, the FTSE 100 will reopen at 73.47 after closing up 104 points yesterday, and the pound buys...
Exit the roundabout onto Huntercombe Spur.
LBC weather, most areas dry with sunny spells. Northern Ireland and much of Scotland will be breezy and cloudier with some showers at times, a high of 19 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Simon Conway.
At Tesco Mobile, get our incredible value SIM. 30 gigs of data.
Keep left at the fork.
Club card prices. And with 99% UK network coverage, you can scroll, stream, swipe, and like wherever you want. That's right. This is...
In a quarter of a mile, merge onto M4.
Every little helps.
Ends 25th of May. Costs £12.50, saving £1.50 monthly. Club card, 24-month contract and unlocked 4G enabled phone required. 95% UK 4G population coverage across the UK. Various policy advised. Charges and terms at tescomobile.com/terms.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Nick Ferrari at breakfast.
Yeah, going to 3 minutes after 7 on Thursday, May the 12th, performing on the global stage. The Prime Minister yesterday, I believe they called it a whistle-stop tour to Sweden. And then, of course, to Finland, signing these historic pacts. Meanwhile, back at home, pressure grows. What about windfall taxes? The energy companies count their profits in the billions. There's suggestions that there could be 5 million children in poverty by this winter. And the idea that people are dared to turn up the gas or turn up the heating. So what about tax cuts or economic support, Prime Minister?
What we will do is use all the ingenuity and compassion that we have and the fiscal firepower. We keep people in work, and that was the miracle of the furlough.
I should explain much of the interview, not all of it, was conducted on the aircraft flying back from Helsinki to London, hence that noise in the background. There are other stories. Round 2 of Wagatha Christie.
Rebecca Varney breaks down as she claims text ordering her agent to leak stories to the press were just a joke. And media lawyer Ian Bloom with a report on the latest from the Wagatha Christie trial.
Unbelievable news. Serial killer Levi Belfield, remember the Millie Dowler murderer, to wed behind bars. How is that allowed? Plus,
a horror scaffolding collapse in West London has left 2 men fighting for their lives in hospital. I'm LBC's Charlotte Lynch in Hammersmith.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
It was, as I said before, very much on the global stage yesterday. The United Kingdom agreeing mutual security pacts with first Sweden, then Finland. The Prime Minister visiting both of the countries to sign what he said were historic agreements. Boris Johnson began his visit in Sweden, visiting Prime Minister Magdalena Andersson, before arriving at Helsinki Airport. And if, of course, you were listening yesterday, you know that I was in Helsinki, and indeed I was waiting there ahead of a joint press conference with Finnish President Sauli Niinistö. I caught up with the PM as he got off the plane on the runway. Prime Minister, you've signed mutual security assurance in Stockholm. You hope to sign one in Finland. These aren't going to deter or stop Vladimir Putin, are they? And if not, what's the point?
These are countries that have been traditionally neutral. Sweden, Finland, they're countries that pose no conceivable threat to Russia. But you've got to look at what's happening in Ukraine, and everybody's focusing on that now. That's another country that posed absolutely no conceivable threat to Russia, and yet it was attacked in a vicious and unprovoked way. And what we're saying today, us and the Swedes, us and the Finns, is that we will come to each other's assistance in the event of attack. Now, that shouldn't need saying, but it is worth saying in the current climate. And what we're also saying is that this is the foundation stone on which we're going to build a closer defence and security partnership.
Your Polish counterpart says that Putin is worse than Stalin or Hitler. Is he right?
I think leaving aside the historical polemics and parallels, you've just got to see what he is doing in Ukraine. This is an act of absolutely barbaric aggression against a country that literally had done nothing to offend him, had done nothing wrong, was simply people trying to lead their lives in peace. And he's continuing to shell, to bomb, to launch massive artillery attacks against innocent civilians. And he's got to be stopped. And what the UK is trying to do is to give the Ukrainians every possible military assistance to protect themselves, and that is what we're going to continue to do.
And just on a domestic point, there is an argument that given the extraordinary amounts of money that you're spending on Ukraine, which many people applaud, you need to look at some way of getting money back in the UK. The so-called windfall taxes. You have the one boss of one company saying they're a cash machine. Centrica today, profits in their billions. Come on, look, are you ruling out windfall taxes, Prime Minister?
The disadvantage with those sorts of taxes is that they deter investment in the very things that we need to see them putting them up. They need to be investing in new technology, in new energy supply.
But the bosses say it won't deter them on investing.
Well,
so are you saying you will look at windfall taxes?
I want them to make those investments. That's the most important thing. They've got to be making investments in new energy supply for our country. Well, here we are in Finland. We've just been in Sweden. Those guys, they've done brilliant. They've got nuclear power in Sweden in the way that we don't have in the UK. They've got hydro. They've got all sorts of resilience that we don't have. We've got to build in that resilience. I want those big energy companies.
Just fine. Are you ruling them out?
I don't like them. I don't think
so. It's not happening.
I don't think they're the right way forward. I want those companies to make big investment.
Then from the airport, a high-speed convoy past the bewildered good folk of Helsinki to sign a mutual security pact and take part in a joint press conference with Finnish President Sauli Niinistö. After the two world leaders had finished their statements and the signing, there was an opportunity for questions, and my chance arrived.
And following questions, Nick Ferrari, LBC Radio.
Mr. Prime Minister, no country on the planet has sent more financial aid, military aid to the Ukraine than the United Kingdom. Reports of £2 billion and rising. Yet back home, we also hear the pensioners spend all day in the library because they can't afford to heat the home, and one man set fire to some driftwood to try and get warm. To those who say you're very good at supporting Ukraine, but you're lamentably poor at supporting your own people, how would you respond?
So, Nick, what we've got to do right now is help people through the aftershocks of the COVID pandemic, just as we help people through COVID, and we will have the maximum energy, effort, ingenuity to help the British people through them, and everybody knows how tough it can be right now, but we're going to get through it just as we got through COVID. And you know all the money we're already spending. There will be more, of course. There will be more support in the months ahead as things continue to be tough with the increase in the energy prices. But I just want to explain to people why it is so important that we stand strong against aggression in Ukraine at the same time, because there is no doubt at all, looking at what Vladimir Putin has done, that this, if he were not to be resisted, this would not be the end, as Sauli has just said. This would not be the end of his neo-imperialist, revanchist ambitions. And just imagine the consequences, not just military or political, but economic, of further Russian aggression against any of the other former parts of the Soviet Union. And it's to prevent that further catastrophe that it's so important that we are together strong now, and Finland has been very strong too. And just to be clear, the only reason we're able to be strong in the way that we are is, of course, because we've had a strong economic recovery from COVID. We've just got to make sure that we help people through the aftershocks, and we certainly will. But it would be a huge mistake to think that it is the economic answer is to let Putin get away with his barbaric behavior in Ukraine. That would be a disaster for the global economy, apart from anything else.
After the presidential palace, it was back to Helsinki Airport for the Prime Minister, and I was granted exclusive access to him at the front of the plane. I remind you, this is obviously conducted with the noise of an aircraft behind. We discussed everything. Ukraine to Sir Keir Starmer's future, what that might mean for him, and why the one-time darling of London, remember his stint as mayor, now the performance of a Conservative Party last week in the local elections was woeful. But in this part, you'll hear me press the Prime Minister on the Queen's speech, and as pressure grows to offer some kind of fiscal relief, particularly for those of the lower income sector, when will people hear more. The Queen's speech, full of promises, full of pledges, a lot of words, but words don't butter the parsnips. How long have people got to wait at the bottom end of the scale before they get help? You said, my right honourable friend, the Chancellor, and I will be saying more about this in days to come. The Treasury reacted, we don't know anything about this. When is it going to happen, Prime Minister?
What we will do is we will look after people. Well, let's look at what's already happening. So,
but when, Prime Minister?
For instance, the cuts to national insurance contributions coming in July, biggest tax cut for 10 years, worth about £330 for the average pair of mix. The council tax cut has just come in. People are eligible for about £9.1 billion worth of help with their energy costs. Well, I don't think what our viewers, our listeners, I should say, our viewers are very few. What our listeners,
which is a shame
because
we're
in an aircraft high over Helsinki, but what people don't realise is that actually there are some help that is not being taken up. Only 65% of pension credit is currently being taken up.
It's their fault for not getting all the benefits, is it?
I want people to come forward and take it. And
there could be 5 million children in poverty by this winter.
There is help for childcare.
That's unprecedented.
The
5 million, Prime Minister.
Childcare is not being taken up in the way that it could be. So please, people, and what I'm saying, Nick, is folks, please check that you take up the things for which you're eligible. And on helping kids with meals, with the cost of feeding kids, which we fully understand in the difficulties that we've got. We've put a huge amount into the Holidays and Activities Fund, which is aside from that, plus supporting local councils to help families in hardship. Now, to get to your question about, what's the plan?
Yes, when are we going to hear it?
Yeah, but I'm giving you the things we're already doing. Plus, there is more coming down the track in July and so on. But what we will do is use all the ingenuity and compassion that we have, and the fiscal firepower that we have as a result of the strong economic growth we had coming out of the pandemic.
But our growth is the slowest of many European countries now.
Our growth will return very strongly.
How do you know?
In the next couple of years.
We've got almost double-digit inflation. Growth is down.
No, because if you look at what we've got,
the pound is bouncing at the bottom.
The big difference is that the UK, unlike most of our comparator countries, has very strong employment, and we've kept people in work, and that was the miracle of furlough. And we have high wage, high skill.
But why is growth anemic, Prime Minister?
That is the best way forward. We have an aftershock, an economic aftershock of COVID that is caused by supply chain problems, but also particularly by the energy price spike. So to come to the second point that we need to do to help people, and you talk about the Queen's speech, Nick.
Indeed.
And you're right. But what the Queen's speech is about is addressing the supply side issues, whether it's on the cost of housing, whether it's above all on the cost of energy, or to say nothing of transport infrastructure and all the other things that erode people's weekly budgets. If we can fix our energy supply issues, we will be doing something massive.
Let me ask you this.
Not just in the medium term, but for the long term for our country. We've just been in Sweden and in Finland together.
We have.
And in those countries, they have much greater security of energy supply. We took historic decisions, which were a great mistake, particularly on excluding the possibility of more nuclear reactors. We're going to build a new...
In 1.5 miles, at junction 3, take the A312 exit to Harrow, Hayes.
Of offshore wind. We are going to a...
Can I bring you back to Earth?
Don't forget, this country uses about 104 gigawatts.
That's I really want to bring you back to Earth.
Gigawatts of offshore wind is huge.
You stand accused of running an administration that's out of touch with the common man or woman. You have a supremely rich Chancellor of the Exchequer with a non-dom wife who doesn't know how to put petrol in his own car. Can you tell me you are in touch with people? For instance, you've referenced children more than one occasion. A price of 24 Pampers nappies at Boots. How much?
I'm not going to get into.
Well, okay. How do you economize? Okay, how do you economize?
What I do understand. What I can tell you is that we will do everything we can to help people through a difficult time. And yes, I think that it is vital that we focus our fiscal firepower on those who
need help. How are you economising, Prime Minister?
And look, never mind.
Are you economising in any way?
I wake up every day thinking about what we can do to help people through this period. Just as we help people through COVID, I think a fair-minded person would say that when it came to it, the UK government stepped up to the plate and came up with some pretty imaginative schemes to get people through the crisis. We had the biggest fall in output for 300 years. We came up with the COVID program and many other forms of support. Now, that has in turn led to a real fiscal problem. And so our room for manoeuvre is not as big as I would like.
We will
do what we can to help.
Are you what's the value of the price cap currently? The energy price cap?
I'm not going to get into...
Should you not know that, Prime Minister?
I'm going to tell you that what we will do is make sure that we help people with all their weekly outgoings. And the best way to deal with the energy price cap...
Which is how much?
The best way to deal with cost of energy is to make sure that we are not only helping people in the short term, it's helping people immediately.
It's £1,971 just to help you out.
With the cost of energy, but also making sure that we have we put in the supply for the medium and the long term, and that is what we are doing.
There's much more to come on that interview. It will be analysed by political commentator and indeed former MP, Times columnist Matthew Parris after the latest LBC News headlines. Simon Conway.
Speaking to LBC, the Prime Minister has refused to rule out a windfall tax on the profits of oil and gas giants. Official figures show the UK's economy grew by 0.8% between January and March, down from 1.3% in the previous quarter. It's understood the government's legal advisers have given the go-ahead to the scrapping of the Northern Ireland Protocol in the Brexit deal. LBC weather, most areas dry with sunny spells, cloudier with some showers in the northwest, a high of 19 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Joanne. We're very slow on the M25 clockwise to junction 9 at Leatherhead. It's all down to an accident where one lane is closed. Also queues on the M1 southbound to junction 11 at Dunstable South. A car has broken down, so one lane is closed, and it's very slow back to junction 11A. Very busy on the North Circular Road. This is heading westbound to Henley's Corner. A lorry broke down earlier. It's just been recovered, but it's still very slow all the way back to the East Finchley High Road. Very busy as well on the A1 southbound. There's a queue of at least a mile to the Apex Corner junction, and that's all down to the roadworks. And on the A13, the eastbound exit Slit Road at the 5 Bells interchange at Basildon stays closed.
LBC. It's the BT Spring Sale. Get superfast fibre for just £26.99 a month and get more of the things you want, like a £20 money back speed guarantee, a Which Best Buy Smart Hub, and super safe Norton security included. Everything you want your broadband to be for just £26.99 a month. Hurry, ends 18th of May. Why choose anyone else? Join BT today. 24-month contract broadband only. New customers, CPI plus 3.9% increase each March. £31.99 for month 25, terms apply.
Call Nick Ferrari now. 0345 6060 973 LBC.
So you're struggling with your mobile connection?
Yes, I've tried everything.
Have you tried walking in a circle? Standing on a chair?
In a quarter of a mile at junction 3, take the A312 exit to Harrow, Hayes.
Tesco Mobile have got you covered. Get network coverage across 99% of the UK so you can stay connected. This is Supermarket Mobile. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps. 99% 4G.
Exit at junction 3.
Outdoors across the UK. See tescomobile.com/coverage-checker.
It's the BT Spring Sale. Get superfast fibre for just £26.99 a month.
In a quarter of a mile at Cranford Parkway interchange, take the 4th exit onto the Parkway, A312.
Norton security included. Everything you want your broadband to be for just £26.99 a month. Hurry, ends 18th of May. Why choose anyone else? Join BT today. 24-month contract broadband only. New customers, CPI plus 3.9% increase each March. £31.99 for month 25, terms apply.
Swale Heating look to the future. We fit air source heat pumps and solar panels, as well as conventional boilers. And we help our customers create a greener, more sustainable home. But to achieve our vision, we need excellent staff. We are looking for customer service advisors and engineers of any discipline to join our team. For more information, visit swaleheating.com. Swale Heating. Rely on us to keep you warm.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
7:22, a little bit late. There's much more.
Exit the roundabout onto the parkway.
The relief could be coming, quotes, July and so on, which is new. Windfall taxes, he's not a fan. He doesn't know the value of that energy cap. Let's turn to...
Continue on the parkway for 1 mile.
Former Conservative MP, columnist for The Times, and arguably one of the nation's best-known llama farmers, and he joins me now. Matthew, what do you make of it so far?
Good morning.
What do you make of it so far?
You did your best, Nick. You did your best trying to find out if he knew the cost of Pampers. Maybe that was a bit unfair, but he ought to have known the energy price cap.
Yes.
And plainly doesn't. The whole trip to Helsinki is just an attempt to distract attention from his domestic problems, which are, as you tried to point out many times, price rises. The supposed agreement with Sweden and Finland, it is an agreement, but it's just a sideshow to the two countries joining NATO. The United States is making similar commitments, though nobody seems to have mentioned that. It isn't just Britain; it's the whole of NATO. And Sweden and Finland will shortly join NATO, and Britain's own protestations that we would consider using nuclear power don't add anything to that. On the domestic front, the problem is that the Prime Minister keeps promising to do something about price rises, that there isn't actually an awful lot the government can do about price rises, but "I can't do it" is not the sort of phrase you would ever associate with Boris Johnson.
Matthew, when you have, and I'm sure you'll agree with me, decent blokes like Robert Halfon, the Conservative...
In a quarter of a mile, at Wagoners Roundabout, take the second exit and stay on the parkway, A312.
And you hear nothing from the PM. How much of a schism might emerge within the Conservative Party?
I think there is a considerable schism already there under the surface. That there are some in the party, perhaps to some extent led by the Chancellor, who think we should dial down the rhetoric on what we can do and help people come to the conclusion that in the end they're to some extent on their own. There are some at the other side of the party who think that the government could do a great deal more, who think that the government can afford to cut taxes, who think that the government could help subsidise everybody's or most people's fuel prices. And then there's Boris Johnson, who just keeps talking but doesn't say...
Exit the roundabout onto the parkway. Continue on A312 for 1.5 miles.
Conservative Party, then a sort of clear split. I think that there's a very clear sense the party doesn't know where it's going.
Lastly, and obviously this is only a subject of conjecture, what do you think the relationship is between the Prime Minister and his Chancellor Rishi Sunak at this time, Matthew?
Well, I'm just guessing, but I think the Prime Minister would like to sack Rishi Sunak. He won't forget that there were a couple of occasions when he didn't back the Prime Minister. I can't remember which particular careless language Boris Johnson used, but Rishi pointedly said it wasn't something he would have said himself. I think if the Prime Minister feels strong enough, he will probably sack his Chancellor, and that it might happen this summer.
Matthew, I always enjoy talking to you. Thank you for listening through the interview. I'm grateful. There's plenty more to come should you so desire, but you probably have to get out and among the llamas. Matthew Parris, political commentator, author, broadcaster, former Conservative MP, columnist for The Times. Quickly, those front pages for you, and I have to tell you, the Daily Mail, now Rishi warms to energy windfall tax plan. Well, the Prime Minister says he doesn't see the future of those, as he told us on that exclusive LBC interview. The Daily Express really picking up on that theme. Desperate cry for people we cannot ignore. Urgent action needed. A similar theme really for the Daily Mirror. The Conservative MP who says families only use food banks because they've not learned to cook properly. It's also the front page of the Metro. Is this a government out of touch? The visit to Norway, to Scandinavia, to Sweden and to Finland is the front page of the Daily Telegraph. UK would help Nordic nations fight the Russians. Similar theme for the Times. UK troops will defend Scandinavia from Putin. For the front page of the Guardian, a carbon bomb that could trigger a climate catastrophe, which I'm sure is important if you're in that area. Arguably, the pact or possibly the cost of living is a greater story. And here's one to make you absolutely choke on those proverbial cornflakes. Bride of a monster, serial killer Levi Belfield has got engaged to a jail visitor who's said to be besotted with the man who murdered Millie Dowler. How he would be allowed to marry, I don't know. Last in the eye, tourists split over cost of living pan, which of course very much reflects that. And do go to the LBC website for full coverage and pictures and just about everything you want to know. Cut out and keep guide, a souvenir edition, as they used to say of newspapers, a souvenir edition. Everything you need to know, including photographs of that trip. And there's much more of that interview to come, but we must reflect other stories. And of course, it was day 2 of the Agatha Christie trial. Fortunately, I'm joined by Ian Bloom, the nation's best-known court reporter and media law consultant. Ian, I'm going to confess, I woke up yesterday morning within striking distance of the great Russian bear, and I didn't really follow events, so I turned to you for a full briefing. Good morning.
Nick, it was certainly a mixed day yesterday for the Vardy family, you know. Jamie had a lot more fun than Rebecca. He scored twice in the evening when his beloved and your beloved Leicester City beat relegated Norwich. Poor Rebecca spent all morning and all afternoon in the witness box of Court 13 in the High Court. And unlike her husband, she was under constant pressure from patient cross-examination, which was designed to cast doubt on her claims that she neither leaked stories about Colleen, taken from Colleen's private Instagram account, nor permitted or encouraged her agent to do so. You could even say that only some desperate last-ditch tackles prevented own goals. I better get on with it. Since Colleen's barrister definitely made life pretty uncomfortable for her. He contrasted her denials of leaking with evidence of messages between her and this agent and stories in the tabloids which seem to support Colleen's case about the identity of the source of these leaks. But still, a bit like, you know, Tottenham defending and then counter-attacking, Rebecca did defend stoutly. She claimed that these messages had to be seen in their proper context of jokes between friends and were not at all sinister. And she only really broke down when she had to reflect on the appalling trolling of her. The fact really, though, is that there's so much potential evidence which might have been fatal to Rebecca's case. Lost mobile phones
in 300 yards, turn right onto Roslyn Avenue.
Passwords, which mean a cache of possibly highly relevant messages can't now be accessed.